In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Bryan Frye, Chad Robinson, Dustin Melbartis, Lizzie Haynes, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome all you lords, ladies, and knights to the Retro Movie Roundtable. Welcome to the show where we watch movies and then talk about them. I'm your host, Russell Guest, from right here in the Pittsburgh Steel City of Pennsylvania. Joining me today are two other Pittsburghers, Mr. Chad Robinson, my co-host and good friend. How you doing, sir?
I feel like for this episode, I should come in with like some big bombastic song and dance number, but I'm just going to go with Hello.
Okay, I think my big bombastic song of Pittsburgh's Renegade by Styx, so I think that's the city's anthem.
Your hype song is from the same people that do Come Sail Away. Come on.
Yes, it is. And then joining us also here today in sunny Pittsburgh, it's beautiful today actually, Mr. Mark Gardner. He's been on the show many times before. The professor, the Five Timers Club now, I think.
I think that's true. Five timers. I'll take it.
Yes.
I haven't scared you away yet.
If you couldn't do it with Virginia Woolf, like you just can't do it.
I think I have killed Mike Nichols' whole catalog for everyone on this podcast universe.
We did another Mike Nichols movie before you came on with Working Girl, and I really like that. So yeah. I like Mike Nichols. And wait, you did The Graduate too, so is that him as well?
It was, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like Mike Nichols, even if Virginia Woolf wasn't a kismet and perfect match for me.
Thank you for having me back.
Chad's now peeking up from under the desk.
Feels bad. Feels bad.
Well, let's ask something that will feel good. We're going to have a musical today. We're going to ask you, what is a musical you have seen in movie format but you have not seen live and you might like to? Mark.
This question is difficult because I've seen every musical in movie form. So I took the reverse side because I couldn't think of one that I have not seen on stage that I have seen a movie. So the musicals that I hope to be movies soon would be Hadestown or Avenue Q, and that's the best I could do. I like musicals, turns out.
Mark likes musicals. Chad, do you like musicals?
I do. I was in several of them. I can't sing, but I was kind of the chorus person. My favorite one was Pink Floyd's The Wall. I got to be out of type. I was this nasty school teacher. I was the teacher that didn't leave them kids alone. So yeah, that was fun. As for me, pretty much all of them. I'm the exact opposite of Mark. Unfortunately, we grew up in Charleston. There aren't really big performances of musicals. I saw a very small scale Phantom of the Opera. I would love to see the real thing. I've heard that chandelier scene is just incredible.
That's a good one. I'm going with a smaller play that wasn't necessarily a big production. It was called Nonsense Amen. Now, Nonsense is normally performed by women, but Nonsense Amen has all men playing the nuns. It's a comedy movie, a comedy play, and it's a whole lot of fun. So if you see it in your town, see it. It didn't have a huge audience, but the performers I saw did an outstanding job on it, and I think that would be a hilarious movie to see that done. Good music, good times, lots of funny stuff.
That sounds very British.
I think it would do well British. I would think think you could collect some Saturday Night Live guys and do a great job with it. I don't know. I feel like there's so many different ways you could go with it. What's the last movie you saw, Mark?
Last weekend I saw Weapons in the movie theater. Highly recommend.
Okay. You're in that club.
Oh man, Aunt Gladys is iconic.
She's a character. The ending was wild.
It was very wild.
Wait, you've seen this one too, Chad?
I have. It's one of those where everyone's hyping it and I just somehow missed this train, but I'm super pumped that horror is just having this run and people are going to go see horror movies. So even if it doesn't hit me, Hereditary is the obvious answer for me of like, I don't get it, but I'm happy other people do.
Yeah. Yeah, Chad's saying, welcome to my neighborhood.
Yes. Yeah. People are like, the substance, weapons. Where did this come from? I've been here. Horror's good.
All right, Chad, how about you? What is that the last movie you saw as well then?
No. Speaking of substance and body horror, I watched the new horror movie Together with Dave Franco and Alison Brie. And it's funny because my immediate thought was these two have absolutely no chemistry. They're married in real life. I didn't know that. I did not care for them, even though they're the executive producers. The movie was interesting. I just kind of wish they'd casted different people.
Yeah, I don't think of Franco being in that spectrum as much, but maybe I haven't seen all of his work yet. So now, the last movie I saw was a 2025 version of Superman, the new one that came out in the theaters. So finally,
Yes.
took me a long time to get to it, but I was one of the last people to get in there and see it probably before it leaves theaters. So
That was really fun, yeah.
it was fun. Yeah, I still like Christopher Reeve's version, like the best. I have a lot of nostalgia for it, and I like the tongue in cheek. Like I'm Clark Kent, like you are, like like I like the goofy side of it, and it's hard to replace Christopher Reeve. Having said that, this was a lot of fun too, so I'm excited
Right.
to see a new Superman.
They went full ham, like pocket dimensions and giant dimensional beans. Guy Gardner's fantastic haircut. Yeah, great time.
Yeah, it was fun.
I miss both of those, and I'm sad about that. I want to see both of those movies. So,
Well, Together just came out, so check it out if you enjoyed Weapon.
yep.
Now, today when we are recovering, Chad.
We are covering 1972's Caberet.
All right, and all that jazz. Let's go ahead and do this. Liza Minnelli, Michael York, Helmut, Griem, Marisa Berenson, and Joel Grey are the stars of this movie. It comes out in 1972, as you mentioned. It was budgeted for $4.6 million. Does quite well. Domestically, it grosses $20.25 million. It places at number 6 on the box office this year, so it does very well, coming in just behind Jeremiah Johnson and ahead of Deep Throat, which that may not be the kind of movie you think it is. So,
That's only you, Russell.
the number one movie from 1972 is a little movie called The Godfather, which this actually goes head to head in a very interesting Oscar night between this movie and that movie. We'll get into that here in a second. Caberet gets a 7.8 from IMDb. The critics of Rotten Tomatoes like it considerably more at 91%. The audience score is very high as well at 87%. And as I mentioned, going up against The Godfather in 1972, pretty tough year to go into the Oscars. This movie comes away with 8 Oscars. Liza Minnelli gets Best Actress in a Leading Role. Best Actor in a Supporting Role goes to Joel Grey. Best Director, Fosse beats out Francis Ford Coppola and The Godfather. I mean, that's a pretty big deal right there. Best Cinematography goes to Jeffrey Unsworth. It is good. Best Art Direction, Set Decoration, Best Sound, Best Film Editing, Best Music and Score. So it even got nominated for Best Picture, but The Godfather came ahead on that one. And it got nominated for Best Screenplay based on a material from another medium. So Golden Globe winner 3 times over for Best Motion Picture. Liza Minnelli takes another one home there, and Best Supporting Actor for Joel Grey. It got nominated for 6 more Golden Globes, but it had a more successful run at the Oscars. 7 BAFTA winners, Best Film, Best Direction, Best Actress to Minnelli. Most Promising Newcomer to Film Roles, Joel Grey. Cinematography, Art Direction, and Soundtrack, all under the BAFTAs. 4 more nominations on top of that, so the British like it at least as much as the Americans like it. The Directors Guild of America nominee for Outstanding Directorial Achievement. Again, this thing has to go up against The Godfather. National Society of Film Critics Award winner. National Board of Film Review winner 5 times over. And the Broadway production of Caberet opened in 1966. It ran for 1,165 performances and won the 1967 Tony Award for Best Musical. So this is off the heels of that. And the AFI loves this movie. They go 2007. They rank this the number 63 movie of all movies of all time. So this is ranked pretty highly. In the 100 songs of all time, Caberet comes home with number 18 in the AFI's list of great musicals here. And then the top 10 musicals of all time, this comes with number 5. So the AFI also said that this movie is holding up. It is holding its place on the all-time list. That's a lot of awards. I'm out of breath. Mark, have you seen this movie? What was your background with it?
I actually was in stage production before I saw the movie in college. I was one of the Nazi singer boys, and made me want to watch it. And yeah, so stage version first before movie.
So, had you seen it before you were in it? So, because that was your introduction. So, being in it, and then you saw it on the stage, and
Well, I
then you
was
saw the
in it.
movie.
Yeah, I was in it on the stage, and then I saw the movie afterwards.
Okay. And have you seen a production that you're not actively in yourself?
No, I have not.
When you saw this movie for the first time, what was your initial response to it? Obviously, you're not going to be taken back. All the surprises are on the table. You know all the music. So, what's it like having been on the stage and then seeing the movie?
Well, I'll say the production I was in was a bit more heavy-handed on the Nazi of it all. I feel like the movie did a interesting job of coding that a bit, making it a bit more hidden. The stage version, we just beat you over the head with it at any chance possible. So that was
As Nazis do.
as as Nazis do, yes. So that was a different experience for me, seeing it underplayed, which I was not expecting.
So, the experience is different then.
Yes, very different.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you, do you like it better in play format or do you like it better in film format?
I think I did enjoy the film more. I wasn't a fan of the musical because the music, as I'm sure we'll talk about, is not very narrative. Like the narrative is not told through music, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's a different type of musical for me. So I feel like the movie did that better than this production I was in, the awful production I was in.
Now, Chad, how about you? Cabaret, have you seen this one before?
I hadn't, and we frequently have this discussion where Russell forgets that I like musicals. So I fought to get on this show. The interesting thing, and Mark kind of hit on it, and I'm sure we'll talk about it much more. I don't know that I classify this as a musical. It's a movie with music. And there's a distinction in my mind. Mark nailed some of my thoughts. This is one, probably like our Virginia Woolf episode, I kind of need to stew on and hear other people's thoughts. So, like, as far as did I enjoy it, I think that's a TBD. Like,
Oh,
like I'm perplexed by this movie. There's a lot I think in the background going on that I really appreciate, but I'd almost appreciate more of the hammer than the subtleties in some areas.
okay. This was my first time seeing the movie too. Growing up, I had the opportunity, I guess, to see this in Broadway, but my family kept selecting other things, and now I know why. So it's not really a family feature. I saw lots of advertisements. The graphics seemed interesting. Chicago, I like Chicago, and if you like
Mm-hmm.
Chicago, this might take you to here. And so I like Chicago. It's like, hey, why don't we see that? If you like Chicago, you'll like that. Not knowing anything about the story now, I now realize that I was asking my parents to see something that you might want to see on your own later. So good parenting decisions by my parents. I enjoyed seeing this more on my own. But
Mm,
having said this, I would be interested to see it on the stage. I'm very interested in some of the changes that they made, both in the version that you're talking about, Mark, as well as some of the things that I'm reading about that make me just curious to know what the different experiences are. So I'm coming in first time, having seen only the Fosse version here in '72, and first time I watched it, I was like, whoa, this is a little heavier than I was expecting, given the time period that we're making a musical in and that we're watching, and B, I just really didn't know what we were getting in for. And so I had to watch this a second time because the first time, I'm not going to lie, I got done and I was feeling a little deflated. I was. And this movie has a lot of very interesting things. And sometimes a movie is a downer, but it needs to be a downer to make a really good point and to have a good message. There's a lot more going on at different levels on this movie. And that's why it's taking home all of this hardware and is being lauded as an AFI great movie. And I do think it's a really good movie and I really enjoyed it. It is not a fun watch. You don't just sit there and say like, hey man, I need to pick me up. Why don't we all get together? The four of us, we'll just go over and we'll watch some Cabaret. Like, I mean, you got to be in the right headspace for it. It's a movie that will make you reflect and think on more than what is happening in the story.
You could watch the first hour and have a lot of fun. It's sort of like, so we had a friend that would always throw on like the first 15 to 30 minutes of Full Metal Jacket
Yeah,
before
he
they
liked to
act,
do that. I don't know. Yeah.
before they got to Vietnam. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of a funny movie. No, it's not.
No, it isn't. Yes, it does turn on you. It's an interesting movie during war times. It's not an actual war movie, and I think that that's one of those interesting things. I thought there was a humorous clip. I think it might have been taken out of Schitt's Creek, where they said, "We're doing Cabaret." So, um, so I just want to say that I'm going into this one. I had to study this one to get it. So if you watched it the first time and you say, "No, that didn't feel good," it's not. But not every movie is made to feel good, and there's a lot of really interesting things within that space that doesn't feel good. So, but I'm looking forward to talking with you guys. We're going to talk about it after the ad break. There will be spoilers that lie ahead, so sit tight. We will be back after these messages.
Welcome to the All 80s Movies Podcast.
I'm Bill.
And I'm Jason. And this is the podcast where we talk about the blockbusters, the flops, and everything in between from one of the freshest decades for movies, the 1980s. So whether you're a brain, a jock, a valley girl, or a Jedi, we've got some 80s classics for you.
Do these movies stand the test of time? Are we discovering something new? Is there an 80s movie we're finally watching for the first time?
Join us each week as we dive into the cinematic nostalgia that inspired and influenced a generation. From the hits to the cult classics, we'll discuss our earliest memories, favorite scenes, fun facts, and our not-so-favorite movie moments too.
It's the All 80s Movies Podcast, now available on all major streaming platforms. Please subscribe and happy listening.
Chad, we're back, and this is just the audience's final warning. There are going to be spoilers now. Chad, for those who haven't seen this movie since 1972, we want to refresh our memories.
In 1931, Weimar, Berlin, English tutor Brian Roberts rents a room in a boarding house and is swept into the neon world of the Kit Kat Club. Hosted by the sardonic master of ceremonies, he befriends brash American singer Sally Bowles, and eventually the two become lovers. Brian begins to tutor a shy Jewish heiress, Natalia Landar, and as well as a fortune hunter, Fritz Wendell. Fritz pursues Natalia while hiding his own Jewish identity, but ultimately decides to admit the truth. He marries Natalia as the anti-Semitism on the street grows. Sally and Brian, meanwhile, fall under the spell of a wealthy baron, Maximilian von Huhn, accepting his gifts and his attention. Ultimately, Max seems to lose interest in both of them and disappears back to Argentina with only a note and some money left over. In the meantime, the Nazi movement continues to grow on screen. A beer garden chorus of Tomorrow Belongs to Me, smashed shop windows, and the exposure of friendly businessman Ernst Ludwig as a Nazi courier. Even the cabaret songs begin to take a different tone. Sally discovers she's pregnant, but is uncertain whether the baby is Brian's or Max's. Brian begs her to leave Berlin for a quieter life in England. Instead, Sally chooses to have an abortion and returns to the stage, prioritizing her freedom and the cabaret. Brian leaves alone, and in the closing image, the club's mirror reveals an audience now infested with swastika armbands.
Yes, a sobering finish. They give you some warmth. They give you that happy ending, and they take it away, and that's what I found jarring there. So, Mark, let's talk about this one. This movie takes place in Berlin during World War II. That's a pretty big part of what's actually happening, even though you said they hit you over the head with it in the play. It's kind of a undercurrent to this movie, but it's also a really important part of this movie, isn't it?
Yeah, I think historically, if you know much about Berlin in the 1920s and early 30s, it was kind of a queer person's mecca almost. They kind of flocked to Berlin to celebrate their queer identity and queer community. And that was happening alongside the rise of the Nazi regime. So it's really interesting to see those two worlds in juxtaposition. And I think this story taking place with a bunch of people who are very progressive and queer positive and queer identifying, surrounded by Nazis, is just this wild kind of world that we forget existed. So I do think the audience members of 1970, having been either a part of or a generation removed from World War II, probably got something out of it that I think audiences today would struggle with, finding that connection, being so far removed from Nazi history. So I don't know. I don't know if the film really has aged well, I guess, if you think of it that way. But yeah, I love the idea that there are these two combative identities kind of forced into a nightclub ultimately, but really into the city, and seeing how those interplays kind of play out.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's some context I didn't have that I had to go back and study about later. I guess I only thought maybe America was more uptight towards whether it be queer culture or homosexuality or whatever. And I thought that was just generally more okay in Europe. And apparently, even within Europe, that wasn't so much the case. And like you said, Berlin was a place that, Bryan's character probably was drawn to it largely because of that. So there's more freedom and more tolerance there. I don't know if this movie, like you said, hits you over the head with what that change is like. And I think that's an interesting thing that's happening in the background of this movie. And I think it was interesting when their character Maximilian says, "Oh, the Nazis are good. They'll get rid of the communists, and then we can control them." And Bryan said, "Who will control them?" Which is a very good question. And so I think that the change that you mentioned, Chad, of the Nazis they're taking over as almost a distraction in the cabaret. The cabaret says, "Come in. It's warm in here. It's not the winter. Turn your brain off." Like Berlin's pretty bad times at this point, which this movie doesn't necessarily hit you over the head with how dire it is. But I think it's interesting, as you pointed out, Chad, the cabaret itself changes from a place of just fun, maybe a little bit of naughty play and stuff like that, to, oh, they're anti-Semitic now, or, oh, the message here has changed, and they're playing specifically a decent chunk of the audience is Nazi themselves. So all of this was made richer by studying the history of it. This movie certainly doesn't condescend, and you could miss some of that. And like you said, Mark, in terms of aging well or not, I don't know. I guess 1972, World War II is a lot closer to you. That's like something that would have happened in the 90s for us, and you don't have to be explained all these things to necessarily. But I remember when we covered Casablanca, the three of us, there was a little clip of the globe spinning at the beginning and explaining to people who are not history majors, for people like me, like Chad already knows all this probably, but I needed that background information. So actually a little spinning globe with a little bit of context might have helped me out on my first watch.
Read a book.
Chad's shaking his head. Just
read a book.
You should just know these things. That's just
read a book.
Common public knowledge.
Yeah, but you did hit on the point that confused me, because part of the situation that led to the rise of the Third Reich was just destitution from the terms imposed on Germany after World War One. And so showing Berlin as, I don't want to say opulent, but it's glamorous and it's glitzy instead of destitute. And the cabaret is it would have been this dingy distraction. It wouldn't be glamorous in any way. That was an interesting choice. But once we got where we were going, I'm like, oh yeah, there were breadcrumbs all along. That's what the Nazi getting thrown out in the beginning was. And then I'll compare it to the Monty Python, like the interspliced scenes where you're like, why was that historian just in the middle of the field cut down? And they keep investigating. The owner's beat up, and we find that later. And then you start seeing one Nazi being able to sit in the club and nothing's done about it. And the Hitler Youth stands up and starts singing, and people join him. And you're like, all right. And then by the end, the Nazis have the best seats in the house. Those are the VIP seats. They're not being asked to leave. They're there. And the songs, they take a tone where, say, in my heart, she doesn't look Jewish. Ooh, okay.
It is delivered very bluntly. The music stops. It
Yeah.
goes quiet. He looks at the camera.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Those were not the songs they were singing before. Not Two Ladies or Money Money, things like that. It's we're now dancing with gorillas and comparing them unfavorably in anti-Semitic ways. So yeah, the breadcrumbs that lead you to the end, I th- I think I'd appreciate more of the tension in the background. It's interesting to see these characters largely not react to it at all. Like,
hmm
you're right, the cabaret is the distraction, and to Sally, it's everything, which is unfair to the person she was based off of, because the person she was based off of was very political.
Now, I want to ask you also, Mark. I'm not a film historian on this, but I thought it was also really interesting. Your main character, Bryan, is either bisexual, homosexual.
He's definitely bisexual.
Yeah, I mean, so that is not something I don't think in 1972 we have a whole lot of. And they don't treat it like a, ooh, what's wrong with this guy kind of thing. It normalizes it and said, this is a normal person. He's the more reasonable person of a lot of the people who are in this movie in many ways.
I mean, I think for American audiences, the fact that it was set in Europe and in Berlin helped with that because it's a them problem. It's not an us problem. So there's a little bit of that where we can tolerate this representation because they are Americans who left America for this reason and good riddance. They belong over there type of mentality. But I also think that they were really smart in how they played queer identity and played it down ultimately. But apparently not enough because when it was shown on TV, they did edit the scenes out. Ultimately, Max was no longer queer when they showed it to more mass audiences. They got rid of all of that. And I know they tried to do that in production as well, but Fosse, the director, was, and most of the people that were the producers, film writer, all of the people kind of stood behind and said, if we remove Max's identity, then this movie doesn't make sense.
It really doesn't.
Yeah, it needs to be in there. It kind of propels the plot forward.
It's almost like saying we're going to take the other couple, the supporting couple, and say they're not going to be Jewish anymore, which would take all tension and it just takes all the consequence and weight of the story out.
Yeah, but I also appreciate this kind of queer lived in experience where when you come to terms with your sexuality, you want to celebrate that. You want to be around people who celebrate that. And even amidst the Nazis all around you and kind of the growing tensions of that regime, you still choose ignorance because this is what makes me happy. And I'm going to keep doing this thing because I feel the best when I'm doing it, or I'm with these people, or I'm in these communities, and anything else that's happening outside of that doesn't matter. So it becomes easier to ignore when you are in such a tight knit kind of community like that. And I think that's an interesting message.
Not to go full blown history on here, but my understanding, I was listening to some videos and stuff on this, and it sounded like you could be openly gay with no. There were people who had newsletters and places where you could congregate and stuff like that. And some of the leaders from the gay community at that point were actually okay with saying like, hey, the Nazis are ultimately not bad. Like, like they're not coming for us. They're coming for the Jews.
Until Goebbels turned on them.
It clearly went wrong. I mean, and even the people who would write these things to try and say like, hey, as long as we try and paint by their, stay between their lines, there's room for us in here. It didn't work. Those newsletters were raided and shut down, and Nazis do what Nazis do, as you know, and history shows that they were not kind to those demographics as they were to hardly just about everybody that didn't meet their agenda. So that part is kind of like, I think that moment of the tomorrow is ours is the turning point. When they look around, they are very uncomfortable that everybody's singing that, and they choose to leave, but they don't look at Germany the same way after that. And I think that is very indicative of what it must have felt like. That, hey, this went from being something stupid, that an extreme, to like a sideshow, and I'm just going to keep going along. And the next thing you know, this has a pretty big, this is getting out of control.
It doesn't seem to affect our characters, though. I would have liked to see Bryan starts a fight with the Nazis, and
it does not go well.
He gets beat up. But his impetus for leaving is the relationship with Sally. And he's going back, I believe, to his wife in Argentina. It's interesting they use Argentina with the connection to the Nazis and everything like that. But Sally's not particularly afraid for anyone in her community. You see this rise and you feel it because you know history. but the characters aren't really reacting to it. And I think I would have liked more of that narrative. You get a little bit of it with Natalia, but I wish we'd spent more time. Or you get that very brief line of Fritz banging on her door saying, "I'm Jewish." Okay, now we get why he was saying, "Hey, I'm a Protestant Christian." He says that in the beginning, but then they just exit our storyline. We don't get a flight from Germany. And ultimately, to your historical point, the people that are working in these cabarets wind up in concentration camps. The ones that didn't leave, Christopher Isherwood, who was a homosexual and had this socialite circle, they all left. Like, they got the message and said, we got to get out. And those that didn't, it did not fare well.
Yeah. I mean, this is true. I know if it was deemed to be socialist or subversive, they shut it down. All the art schools, and Germany had an amazing art scene over there. You know, they said it was this was counter to good old fashioned German values. And
if they could have just lowered their standards and let that one guy with bad paintings in, this just could have been a different story.
They were too good. That was the problem.
Right. Yeah. Darn your standards.
Yeah, I think there's something also about the political apathy that people can have that can just be like mulled to sleep by their glittery, what they see in front of them as shiny and glittery. And that's ultimately how fascism usually grows, is by people being apathetic to it or ignorant or deciding to look the other way. So to that end, I think that there's some interesting connections throughout all of history that we can point to where that's the case. How do you get to a point of fascism? People just didn't believe it until it was literally right in front of them.
Right.
And the sideshow thing, the Colosseum in Rome probably is. I know you love Rome, Chad. I think that's one of the things that came to my mind of like people give them games and give them entertainment and they'll be fooled and distracted.
Bread and circus to the point of literal bankruptcy, but the people are happy.
Exactly. And so I thought that was great. This movie ends, like as you mentioned, Sally chose to leave Bryan in what is this is a heavy moment that would have been a lot to chew on. 1972 is also a time of Roe versus Wade. And, America's going through a lot of reproductive rights debates, and in many ways they're back now. And so this movie has become relevant and not gone away in that regard. And so from what I've read in film presentations of abortion at the time is usually done as a very bad thing, or in this case, it's treated as I'm not going to be able to mother this child. I'm just not going to and rather than have an unwanted child. And I don't think they fully explained how destitute the situation was becoming in Berlin, which I think, again, would help people understand what is happening. Again, without that context, I thought what she did without talking to Bryan was really, I was like, oh no, we had the happy ending, and you pull it away from me. Like he said, I don't care if it's mine, and which was a really heartwarming moment. And I thought, oh wow, I got all the warm fuzzies from this.
But then he ignored her on one picnic blanket, and it's all over. That was a weird scene. Where
I think he knew. I think he suspected the abortion.
She hadn't had it.
Mark, do you think what was with that scene? I'm going to ask you because that's how I took it. I thought the abortion had already happened, and he suspected it.
I don't. My interpretation was that it hadn't happened yet. I assumed that he knew that was on the table, that she was thinking about it and trying to talk her out of it. But that's how I read that scene.
Okay.
Yeah, he's just seemingly bored or not paying attention. But then it's very imagery heavy, but they show that red ball bouncing down the stairs. It's a deliberate red color, and she stops and pauses, and it's implied. And then they show red light, and then there's a scream, and it's into a dance number. But it's at that point that I think the abortion happened. It's very off screen, but it's done it's almost like the giallo horror movies type. They have different imagery to tell you without telling you.
You probably are right. I might have filled in gaps for myself. I'm not sure why he's so distant in that scene, if not for suspicion, at least suspecting that.
It is weird. It's a very strange scene. I don't know if he's just exhausted because she's she is very childish, and the person she's depicting is based off of a 19-year-old who, for all intents and purposes, is very close to a child as far as worldly wisdom. Like she reminds me of just like she's trying to get his attention by saying outlandish things, and a lot of times he doesn't feed into that. She's like, "Don't you find me shocking?" Not really.
There were other adaptations on the stage since this film that definitely delivered that plot point much more clearly, and especially the Nazi takeover. I read about one production in the 90s that the Kit Kat Club dancers were actually shipped to the concentration camps at the end.
Mm-hmm.
There are other productions where Sally and the MC are in Nazi regalia, and that's how they finish the show. So
Wow.
there are much more, and there's a version on Broadway right now. I actually haven't read what the ending is, but every time they've done it since the film, I think they've had the same realization that we have to be a little clearer with what's going on here and why people are making these decisions or not making decisions. So yeah, that metaphor has slowly become more concrete over the years for audiences.
You mentioned other versions. I think I want to mention that in 1955, there's an earlier film adaptation of this content here, and starring Julie Harris and Lawrence Harvey. It's called I Am a Camera. And they sanitized this story. They removed the queer elements out of there. And again, I've not seen this movie. I'd be a little bit curious to know what you have left. I can't imagine it's particularly great. Apparently, it caused quite a stir, even in its own right, at the time. So it was controversial for 1955 standards. There are very different standards for what is controversial in 55 and 72, though. A lot of stuff changed in those years.
Well, actually, it kind of harkens back to my OG Retro Movie Roundtable episode of The Graduate, because it was kind of around this time where movie musicals stopped being in favor, and The Graduate ultimately is kind of heralded as the pivot point a lot for film historians, is to say this is when audiences wanted real characters going through real things. They didn't want to see the Disney flashy musicals anymore. At this point in movie musical history, no one cared about musicals. No one wanted to watch them. No one was making them. Bob Fosse's previous directorial debut bombed, and that also kind of set people on a different course for movie musicals. So the fact that this doesn't feel like a musical is very intentional, because I don't think audiences would have gone to it and enjoyed it as much if it did.
You're right about that. That makes me super sad because I love the musicals. You know, I remember when we covered A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, the movie, and that came out in 66. And that's well before this movie comes out. And in that movie, they took out a lot of the music. And I don't want to spoil that episode for you. It's a great episode. If you haven't checked it out, you should. It's a really funny movie too, by the way. And 1966 musicals were already waning. They took out an enormous chunk of the music out of that movie because they said people don't want too much music in their movies. And if you track that down, that's very incongruent with what you're saying. Some of the movies were not returning. It was becoming a risky proposition to do one. I think that's unfortunate, but in a way, Fosse saying that we're going to go back to the original content and we're going to make a very real, gritty, you know, the Hays codes are gone, as you covered when Virginia Woolf, you came on last time. There's a change, and I think The Graduate is a big part of that. And I love how everything comes full circle now that you're back on again. But I mean, you know, this new Hollywood movement of everything in the 70s really was changing, and that all came down to that Hays Code coming down officially, and people clearly had an appetite because they couldn't have it for, you know, 50 years of film. So to be able to have these very messy, gritty, you know, or queer type movies, you couldn't have them before. They were pretty much banned. And even at that, in London, this was an X-rated movie. So this movie did still cause plenty of controversy, even in its own right at the time.
Which is funny considering the 70s period for horror. Like, it's the horniest period you will ever find. My parents criticize modern horror, and they grew up in the 70s. I'm like, have you seen the movies from your age? Because we don't have that type of nudity. We don't have the lesbian vampire movies that were so prevalent. Vampires were a big form of like sex appeal for this period of time. So it is interesting to see that backlash of getting now that period of conservative buttoned up movies and going in two directions, either horny or I think we get more like gritty realism.
Before we had Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and after you get things like Tommy, Rocky Horror Picture Show,
Mhm.
The Wall, as you mentioned earlier, Chad. So, I mean, this is a change of direction for what people look to for the musicals. Now, I don't know what the total ramifications are on the stage, but Fosse is a big time figure in the jazz and theater world. This saved his career. As you mentioned, Mark, he was a director and it bombed out. Nobody wanted to really touch him or work with him, at least not on stage. And he was a great choreographer from his previous films, but this was a comeback film for him.
Yeah, it was believed that he was hired as a choreographer first for this film. He always was on paper the director, but there was a lot of belief that they were going to fire him eventually as director and just keep his choreography and replace him eventually. It didn't end up happening, but yeah, he was not well liked in this moment, especially as studios. The studio system was propagated through movie musicals, Singing in the Rain, all of these early musicals, and then he kind of was at the very end of that, and he oftentimes is credited at helping kill the movie musical with Sweet Charity, which was just a movie that was, well, let's say, over directed, to be kind. A lot of really popular music in that show, really great dance sequences, but the movie itself just failed, and it was largely because of his direction. So this was really his last chance to become a director and not just a choreographer.
Yeah, Chad, this movie is selected for its cinematography. It gets Best Direction over Francis Ford Coppola and The Godfather. After bombing out of a movie, how does he put it all together? Because clearly he gets it right here. Is it just the subject matter that, man, this is his thing? He wanted this pretty bad.
That's an interesting question. And I've seen all that jazz, but I have not seen Sweet Charity. I have not seen Star Haiti or Lenny. I couldn't speak to his directing style. This to me seems very influenced by Italian cinema. It's a lot of the same flashing shots, a lot of the same colors. I mean, Russell, you've seen Suspiria. It probably does remind you a little bit of that. The Dario Argentos of the world.
I like that.
I I don't know if they're influencing each other or he's drawing on that, but that's just the style as I'm watching it that called out to me. We have up close shots of Liza Minnelli's face, and there's a black background. It's her side profile. And then it pans out, and just these striking shots of everyday objects or unusual angles. I'm interested in seeing the other bits of his work. It's been forever since I've seen all that jazz.
I was gonna say all that jazz technically was probably my introduction to Fosse. I don't know why I saw that before I saw Cabaret, but I watched that in high school, right around the time that Chicago came out. Thinking, oh, this will give me some insight into Fosse, but all that jazz is. I remember thinking, what did I just watch? That was really wild. I'm not sure what that was. My 15-year-old brain couldn't comprehend it, nor make the common thread from that to Chicago. Just was totally lost on me. So had I seen Cabaret, I think I would have been able to stitch that together a little bit better. But
It is interesting, though, like we think about our time growing up, just about every musical that came out short of Cats, and this I celebrate because Cats is terrible, but every other musical does really well in the box office. I remember people being suddenly obsessed with Chicago.
I mean,
Phantom of,
Chicago changed it, though.
Phantom of the Opera was, well, people liked it despite Gerard Butler. Like, they enjoyed the movie.
mhm.
But yeah, Chicago was a phenomenon. Rent, um,
Hairspray.
yeah, and then Wicked. I mean,
Producers remake as well, like the musical version of it. I mean, some of these are varying degrees of success, of course. I mean,
they
some.
still do well though, and it's just odd that it's few and far between. Like Wicked is going to make $1 billion between the two movies easily. They're getting all this franchise opportunities, and I don't think there's stuff out there right now that people are obsessed over as much as what I can think of in high school. Like no one's No one's clamoring for a shucked movie. I'd see it.
I would too.
My wife's from Nebraska. If you show me a corn movie, I will go see it.
Book of Mormon would make a fun movie.
Yeah, absolutely would.
I think it's interesting. I went on somebody else's podcast, and I think I did a little Shop of Horrors on it. Later on, we covered it, I think, on this show as well. And I remember looking at where does it stand in terms of decades, like it was in 80s. Where is this in terms of 80s musicals? And I looked, and there was not a lot to choose from. They pretty much do die. We were talking about the die, like how this saved them. It's like a last gasp of shifting of going more gritty and more adult, but I can't say it really truly saved the genre because it kind of dwindles and dies off in the 80s. If anything, Disney kind of saves it with the 90s by Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Lion King, these kinds of things, because they're largely non-existent shortly thereafter that. So I'm going to say thank you for keeping the musical going, even though you took too much music out. There's, again, I believe 5 musical songs removed from this. There's like a landlord, older couple that brings more of a sentimental warmth side story that have been removed from this. Again, Fosse's going for the gritty. I think it's interesting. Some people have criticized him that he didn't show how dire the Berlin situation was. People are literally starving to death. This is not just bad, this is real bad. And as you mentioned before, they make it seem pretty glamorous. Now, when you're rich, I mean, I guess things are always going to be glamorous, but it's my understanding, even if you were rich, it was bad times for everybody at this point. A lot of these things are based on real events. I think you mentioned, Chad, like Sally Bull's character is actually based on a real person, but that part, to some degree, Fosse was, criticized for saying, like, you didn't really capture what a dire situation it was.
It changes the tone of the movie. I think it makes it more fun and less sad. Like, go to Les Mis. Les Mis is not a fun time. People are starving. People are scrapping. And there's not much distraction in Les Mis. You kind of
Except for the master of the house.
Yes, you wallow in the misery for a large part of it, and that's probably not what he wanted to do here. He wanted to have that flapper style fun song and dance while having in the background horrifying things rising up and creeping in and slowly taking over.
I mean, the music by itself, they slap. All the songs are great by themselves. Like, out of context, you wouldn't have any idea what type of movie this is. So
no, it's true. Some of them seem kind of like Life is a Cabaret seems like a fun song, or like, Welcome In is, we're in for a good time here, or whatever.
Wait, Cabaret was the one with the dead hooker, right?
Yeah, yes.
The last song, she talks about her friend Elsie, who's like she calls her a working girl or something like that.
She does, but she even says she's the happiest corpse I've ever seen. Like, it's done in such a light, again, sideshowy kind of manner. It's a distraction.
Yeah, it's the body style of music. I struggled with this one. I've seen some people put it as the #1 musical of all time.
Well, we won't go there.
I'm sitting there watching it. I'm like, is this really a musical? Like, music is happening, and they're fun dance numbers. But Mark hit it earlier. It's not advancing the plot. We're really not getting insight into how any of the characters feel through the music. It's just another smoke mirror distraction.
Short of the number that you said that you would have been in, Mark, Tomorrow Is Ours.
All the music number.
I think that's still a good song.
I do too.
It actually is a good song.
I was singing along with it before I remembered what actually was.
It's horrifying. I'm like, this is the best song in the movie, and that makes me feel bad.
Yeah, you don't want to just go down the street humming that song.
we're taking it back.
Well, all the music is on a stage where the music would happen anyway. So Fosse felt like nobody wants to see people just dancing in the rain, which I do.
I do, yes.
I do. And breaking out into song in the streets, like with the Muppets. I do.
Mm-hmm.
But so anyway, Bob Fosse got the message that people don't like these things. And apparently the box office also told people we don't like these things. So keeping it all in the cabaret part of the show, that's where the music takes place. I did like that if you're going to take it out, there's moments where it happens in the background. There's records playing it, or you can hear it around. So the things that were cut from the movie, at least there's at least a little love letter to the source material that came from this. So if you are a diehard fan of the show, there is still some tip of the hat for you, and as far as that goes.
That is super awkward to watch when they're flirting and Bryan's in bed and she walks out and comes back with the record player and cranks it to get it going. I'm like, wow, what a not sexy thing to do.
It's interesting you mentioned sexy because the cabaret is like they're all dressed in lingerie and stuff like that. And in essence, I don't know if you were there at the time, it was this viewed as sexy, but how the makeup is on these people is so off-putting. Like they're so paled out and like their faces are drawn on. I'm not saying they're like clowns, but I mean there's something off-putting. And so even though they're dressed in a way that says this is very sexy, something's off. And the MC at the very beginning creeps you out from the get-go. Like he says welcome in, but it doesn't feel like he's a creepy welcome in guy. Like I should not come in with you. Like that does not seem safe. You seem like the kind of guy who wants to offer candy to kids, and no, I don't want. That's not the kind of welcome I want. So at first I was like, I don't like this guy. I don't like this casting. This is going to be my recast. I wrote down like I paused the movie on my first watch. I was like, no, thank you, this guy.
Oh, but wait for it. My opinion did not change.
I think we're on the same page there.
Yeah. Well, it did. You were supposed to be creeped out. He's, there's like you said, the turn. It was all deliberate. So, and he had played it on the Broadway stage, so he clearly had been awarded for it. He was the right man for the job. There was some debate of whether he should get it or not between Fosse and the producers and such, but I'm glad the producers went to bat for him and he got to be in it. Joel Grey felt like Fosse kept nitpicking because he wanted to play the role himself. And so they didn't get along very well throughout this, but I don't think Fosse got along with a lot of people through this. Producer Kai Fuhr, he didn't get along with him either. They had a big debate over this part, who was going to play the MC, and they didn't get along with that. The editor and Fosse said Fosse would just go out of the room and pace in the hallway and not talk to him, and they had a hard time getting along. And eventually Fosse told him, I have a bad case of hemorrhoids, the worst you've ever seen. I cannot sit down. That humanized him for a moment, and those two were able to better get along, but it was tense before that point. So Fosse seemed like a difficult personality, but he clearly knew how to bring this all together, both from a dancing standpoint. He wanted this. He went to bat for it. When he found out this was going to happen, he said, who's producing this? I've got to be in it. And they still considered other actors. Sorry, they still considered other directors for this, but ultimately he was the man who came out with it against the odds, so to speak. I think some other people were offered this and they didn't want to touch it, given how controversial this is. And that's understandable. It's not playing it safe by taking this on. But with the great risk comes huge reward with that award haul.
Yeah, I love the story of Joel Grey and Bob Fosse, part of the nitpicking back and forth. Bob Fosse was known, obviously, as a choreographer and actually as a dancer in a lot of movie musicals prior. His shtick was doing backflips, so he was really well known as a backflipper. So one day on set, he told Joel Grey, well, do a backflip for me. And Joel Grey pretty much responded to say, you do one first. And so Bob Fosse proceeded to do a backflip and not land that backflip, but landed on his face.
Oh.
And they say that the next he laid there lifeless. They thought maybe he was dead for a while. And then he stood up, walked out of the room, came back the next day, and his face was swollen shut. Like he injured himself. And that was kind of, I think, the point in which Fosse kind of let Joel Grey have the one. I mean, like, I guess I won't be as much of a bully. Karma happens,
Well, I want to ask you a question. In the Broadway version, there's an American writer coming to Berlin and an English singer. Liza Minnelli's American in this one, and Bryan, who they changed to be played by Michael York, is British. I don't know if you think is this just Liza's American, that was the right person for the job, or what do you think caused them to make that flip, Mark?
Well, I think Liza was attached to this before Bob Fosse, if I remember correctly. Or she had convinced Fuhr that she was to do the part. She was passed over on Broadway for the role, and apparently it said that she kind of crafted her choices of projects that she did after that to make a case for herself whenever Cabaret got made into a film, that she would be Sally Bowles. And so she's not well known for many of her acting roles prior to Cabaret, although she did have a nomination in there. But for the most part, not well known roles. She usually went for the gritty roles that weren't very popular. And that was to build up her resume to make a case for herself as Sally Bowles when they did the film. So I think it was kind of bound and determined that she was going to always play Sally Bowles, which is also interesting that she was attached to the project even before Bob Fosse officially was.
It's my understanding she auditioned for the theater role and she didn't get it.
Yeah.
So that really, like you said, drove her, like, I'm going to get this part. I heard her say that, she's Judy Garland's daughter, for those who don't know, and that's Dorothy from Wizard of Oz, for those who don't know. So she's a big time deal. And so she didn't want to be thought of as a Nepo baby, even though she is. But I mean, she wanted to say that I can stand on my own. And she, like you said, Mark, she just picked these projects that apparently were bolder decisions. She wasn't playing it safe. And so
Sally Bowles is not meant to be a good singer. She's not meant to be a polished performer. And so I think that there were rightful critiques of her casting, that she was too talented to play Sally Bowles. And every production I've seen of Cabaret, they play that up, that she's not meant to be a good singer. She's meant to be rough around the edges. She would never make it in Hollywood. She wasn't talented enough. Liza did not really communicate that, I think, as well as stage version, because she was very talented.
She's extremely talented. I mean, do you want to hear a bad song, though? Like, or do you want to hear a bad performance in this one? Because author Christopher Irshwood did not like her. She thought Sally Bowles, like you said, was based on somebody else who had a deep, husky voice and was very clearly never going to make it.
I think it adds to the comedy and might lighten it up quite a bit of seeing and understanding this dire situation, but this is not even a good choice, but it's her choice and what makes her happy. So yeah, I think I want the poorer singer.
Really, I thought Minnelli was outstanding. I didn't know she had. I'll be honest with you. I knew Liza Minnelli more from like Saturday Night Live, like cameos sitting next to Kristen Wiig on Weekend Update, or from like commercials of like, oh, she's this wild and crazy zany person or whatever. So I didn't really know what Liza Minnelli had to offer, 3 decades prior. I think of her as Kristen Wiig, like, I'm going to talk to my friend this apple. Like, like it's just like how she speaks, which is hilarious. And she was a good sport about that too. But no, Liza Minnelli really, she took me by surprise. I didn't know she had all this in her, even though she had done it clearly long before I got to it. I was all on board. I like the casting. I think, yes, she's not going to make it, but I think we see that in the performance. I think when you sing songs on the stage, you want them to be good. People like to hear good singing.
If you have a moment, you should look up Judi Dench. Dame Judi Dench, rest in peace. Oh, wait, is she still with us? Anyway, Judi Dench playing Sally Bowles on stage.
Really?
Regardless of whether she is or not there, Mark, she will someday be, and this content's evergreen, so even if you're wrong, it's going to be right eventually. So it's only a matter of time. Yeah.
It's wild to watch that interpretation.
Huh.
Who's not known for her singing chops.
Jean Ross did not like the portrayal of herself either. As you mentioned, Chad, she was part of the Communist Party and she was very politically against this. So Liza Minnelli wanted to meet the person who she was based on. She wanted nothing to do with it. So, and Maximilian von Huyn was based on an actual person too. So again, all of this stuff is actually, I guess, based in real tragedy. John Blomshield was the name of the wealthy man who sexually pursued both of them and then dumped them both. Isherwood and Ross were the real people.
It is interesting as far as Christopher Isherwood, who, like I mentioned in the beginning, he is gay and he makes the character of Bryan bisexual, but he mentions Bryan is his experiences. But then he writes, if you read some criticism of the people that were in his social circle, they'll say, hey, Chris was the least political out of all of us. but he gives the character of Bryan that kind of foolish stand, but still a little bit heroic. Of he talks back to the Nazis, he talks back to Herr Ludwig, and he gets beat up for it, but he is making some kind of stand. So he's changing little things about himself to maybe make himself a little more heroic.
I love that, and I love the love story. It's a terrible time to come out as being Jewish, but your love for this person is so strong. I think that there was a humorous thing of like, how's your gigolo game going? It's bad. I had to cancel some dates because I wanted to go out with her, and I'm always spending money on spending time with her. And worse yet, I like it. Like, I thought that whole run was funny. This movie's not short or whatever, and like I said, we're trying to add music back in, but I still wanted to spend more time with these guys. I like that. Was a very sweet love story. I like them as well.
That's the only like character growth we actually get through this movie is Fritz. His character actually has an arc. Everybody else is sort of a flat line here. I mean,
Bryan, do you not think that he leaves heartbroken, but having understood more about the world around him?
I'm not even sure he's that heartbroken. I don't know that he gained understanding. I think it's just he calls himself strange and extraordinary all the time. So he's just eccentric as well. He's just one eccentric person in a very eccentric environment. And I've been around these types of people that can just live in chaos and thrive in chaos and then leave and be chaotic somewhere else. And I cannot cope with that. But that's what I was seeing in Bryan, and that's what I was seeing in Sally. Of just like, I don't think he's heartbroken about it.
Yeah, I would say that we've all met somebody who's full of life and like seems like they're really charming, but this person's like actually going to cause you trouble and heartbreak or whatever. And Sally Bowles is definitely that character of like, boy, she seems like a breath of fresh air. Look at her, this free spirit. But this is somebody who couldn't possibly settle down. She wasn't going to be tamed. And I think part of this is tragic. We talked about, he wanted to have a child. He wanted to be with her. He cared about her. Maybe I got the drift that he prefers men, but he has seen a connection with her that's beyond necessarily that, which is a very deep kind of real love. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. When your love transcends necessarily, what your preference is or whatever, it's more about the person. That's a really cool message. And I was prepared to go home with that and say like, oh, that's cool. But I think it's also kind of tragic when you see somebody so committed to a dream that they can't achieve. Whether it be like a minor league baseball player in single A baseball who's like, 40 years old and still trying to make it, and at their family's detriment of not spending time with their children and financially just screwing themselves, or a musician who just won't, I want to get my big break. And not everybody has developed the ability to write songs or has the talent to make it there. In fact, so many people want to make it, or the people who go out to Hollywood and come back with their tail tucked between their legs, or worse, just never come home with their tail tucked between their legs. There's an avenue to be happy, to go on, but that's not what Sally wants. And so she gives up from what me as a viewer perceives as a possible happy ending, which wouldn't be happy for her. As she points out, she makes the right call in that she won't be a mother and a wife, and they're going to end up hating each other, and she knew that.
The first thing they do when they find out she's pregnant is toast alcohol.
I know. I noticed that right away. I was like, didn't they know it then?
Fetal alcohol syndrome. I don't know if it's set in the 30s.
Here, smoke. And jump on this trampoline while you're doing it.
Again, willful ignorance. Like, we will choose to be happy despite all of the evidence to the contrary.
That is Sally Bowles' MO. I will go on. The show will keep me happy. I just have to turn my head away from all the tragedy and terror in the world and turn a blind eye to it. I think this movie does a good job of pointing out why that's a dangerous thing. Yeah, I mean, Fosse, as you mentioned, he gets the award for the BAFTA award. He gets the Oscar. He goes on to get an Emmy Award, 9-time Tony Award, and a Palme d'Or. It's just an amazing resume. He doesn't have that many movies, but his legacy is largely through the stage and through jazz music, and his work as an artist that transcends only just doing movies. Mark, do you feel like this is Fosse's greatest moment as an artist here with the direction of this movie?
I would say if you ask him, I would guess yes. This would be probably one of his most proudest moments, just based on how low he was before he got this job. But for me, I think his impact is in movie musicals, just based on what we were saying about Chicago being as big as it was. Chicago doesn't exist without Bob Fosse and how Bob Fosse told stories through these sort of musical vignettes. Now, I think Chicago does a better job of the music propelling the plot more than Caberet does, but it was still the same thing where if you've ever seen Chicago on stage, it's nothing like the movie. It's a black box. You're looking at the band the whole time. There's no set design, there's no costume changes. It's all very basic, and it's all just about the songs telling the story versus Caberet, which I think probably could have done better at that. So to me, his lasting legacy is with movie musicals, with Chicago being kind of this resurgence of that genre. And that doesn't happen without him, even though he wasn't alive to see that movie musical come out. But Chicago doesn't exist without Caberet.
I did have to look up definitions because so Cabaret, it's more like sketches and skits and things like that, and there's a big production. A lot of this feels more burlesque to me, but I think it's because we never get the whole show. We just get, especially the first couple of numbers, they're very kind of sexy striptease-ish. I'm sure there's overlap, but I just don't know enough about that world. But we never get the whole Cabaret show. We just get these little tiny snippets, and it seems like they're doing a different one each time.
And as the audience, you don't care because the choreography is so fun to watch.
It is,
And
yeah.
I think, again, him being a choreographer played a big part of that. Like, we're going to distract you at the beginning of this movie. You're not going to know what it is you're watching, but you're going to be entertained because watch what I can make these dancers do.
I did have to look it up as well because we studied the Marx Brothers, who came out of the burlesque theater, and I like you, Chad, said there's some similarities and some overlaps. But apparently, Cabaret has a satirical bite and like a
Yeah.
more political stance in it, and then obviously the burlesque is more of a comedy that's going to like lead up to the big striptease part of the performance as well. But no, you're right. I'd be a little more curious to somebody who's a stage historian break those differences down further. Now, we talked about the music, wanting more of it, but let's talk about what's there. Mark, what's your favorite musical moment from all of this?
Man, I hate to say it, but I do like Tomorrow Belongs to... Was it Tomorrow Belongs to Us or The Future Belongs to
Tomorrow
Us?
Belongs to Me. Yeah.
Thank you. Tomorrow Belongs to Me. I mean, I guess partially because I sang it in 4-part harmony, so that's really fun and it's fun to sing. But I love that that scene is the only musical number we get off stage, and that's very intentional to draw. I mean, it's kind of the pivot point of the whole movie, where you start to realize, oh, this actual serious stuff is going on in the background. Now it's in the foreground, and we start to see the buildup of that song and people joining in and being more boisterous with their singing of it, and it just becomes creepier and creepier as it goes on. I just thought that was a really well done song and a really well done way on the film.
It starts off so sweet too. Like there's just a kid singing, and you're like, "Oh, that's great." This little kid's just breaking into song, and people are listening. And then he stands up, and it's, "Oh, you're part of the Hitler Youth." This got 100% less sweet, and it just warps that context of Tomorrow Belongs to Me. Well, yeah, historically it did, but that doesn't mean good things.
Years before Cabaret was filmed, Liza Minnelli performed Maybe This Time when she appeared with her mother, Judy Garland, in London. That's kind of fun that then it made its way into here. Instead of a new ballad for the film, John Kander and Fred Ebb were pursued by Liza Minnelli to use the song Maybe This Time, which, again, she was familiar with and she knew. And Fosse wasn't a fan of it until he later heard her performing it. And, he said, yeah, it's in. And Minnelli said that some of the writers jokingly blamed her for the loss of the Oscar nomination for Best Song category because it was previously written title that they went into an otherwise original scores.
Still written by the same Kander and Ebb, composer duo, maybe this time, although for a different show. So Cantor and Ebb have their fingerprints all over this as well.
And to have written a Nazi Germany anthem, which was fictional and didn't exist before, they were both Jewish, which was fun. I kind of have this imagining, like, we're going to write this. And it's like you're sitting down and writing. It's like, I don't want to write this. It's like, what are Nazis like?
Tomorrow is what they're like.
No, I just think it's a humorous notion of trying to write an anthem for something you're dead set against.
I mean, Mel Brooks and Springtime for Hitler.
It's a good song.
It is, yeah.
So again, they took out some other music in here. Sitting Pretty, So What, It Couldn't Please Me More, Married, and Don't Tell Mama. All these were just cut out of here to tighten it down. I don't know that I have gone back and listened to them individually. I need to see them in context to see how painful these omissions are. Like I said, I had seen a funny thing happen on the way to the forum, and I was just like, "There's some more good stuff. That I want the deluxe. I want the director's cut. Give me more."
No,
but
Dustin and I were both like, "This episode is perfect. It is the perfect length. Don't make it longer."
Well, I don't have that background with this one, so I just wanted more music in general because there were some in the beginning. You get some music, but I didn't set my stopwatch and time it. But I was sitting there going like, "We're on a very long drought for a song," and I was sitting in my chair going like, "I want a song." Like, I came for a musical.
Somebody tell me how you're feeling through song.
When she shouted at the train, so I was like, "Oh boy, here comes a song!" Like, like this is where you sing about like how you have that energy flowing through your body.
Look at that! There are lampposts. You can hang off of them.
I did have these moments of like, you could sing. So,
and then it takes the turn. It's like, oh, I don't want the Nazis swinging off the lamppost.
All right, what do you say we hand out some superlatives here, you guys?
Sounds great.
MVP Mark.
I went back and forth, but I'm going to be obvious. I mean, Liza kind of crushed it for me. I, other than this role, knew her from Arrested Development more than anything else. I love her on that show. So I loved getting to see the younger actress and just crushing the role. I think she did well. Singing, acting, I think all of the above.
And that's mine as well. I mean, she certainly holds her own, and she is Judy Garland's daughter, but she's also just Liza Minnelli. This performance really sealed that. She's outstanding. Great voice. I didn't know she could sing like that. Yeah. How about you, Chad?
Tripling down on that one, which is it's a weird place for me because I didn't really like anything about the Sally character. You brought it up, Russell. Like, just in my brain, the warning bells are going off of like, this is a woman you don't want to be around, no matter how interesting it is. She's a trap.
Like, she's gonna hurt you.
Yes. Run, don't walk away from this, because she's immature, she's self-centered, she's kind of annoying, but Liza does this excellent job of just channeling this frenetic energy.
Yeah.
Well said.
Best supporting, Mark.
I gave it to Michael York. I thought he did really well playing Bryan. The subtleness of his kind of queer smirks, like when we were supposed to get more insight into who he was without him telling us. I thought he did that really well. Be very subtle and yet, although I always love more queerness, but I think, yeah, he was my supporting choice.
He did have great reaction shots.
Yeah.
When they were casting this movie, they said, we want a Michael York type. And it got back to his agent, and he said, do you think I might qualify? He still had to audition for it, but he got the role. You know, I did not make the connection right away, but I kept sitting there going like, his face and voice sound very familiar. And then I was watching some YouTube stuff preparing for it. That's Basil Exposition from Austin Powers. He's Basil.
Yes, he is.
Yes. Chad, best supporting.
I do wish you hadn't looked so much like Helmut Griem. Like, I got them confused. But best supporting for me, I went with Fritz Wepper, who played Fritz. I mentioned before that he kind of fades into the background toward the later half of the movie, and that made me sad. I liked him. He was like this dopey person. We're going through grammar school with him, but he's just talking about how he's a treasure hunter, I think is how he phrases it. And trying to get together, and he gets the girl, and he gets the happy ending, and he comes to terms with his Jewish identity and all of that. I just want the rest of his story and how that ends. Probably not well in 1930s Germany.
Yeah, probably not. Unless they get out in time. Maybe.
Yeah, I hope so.
You gotta hope. You gotta hope. Killing your dog is a pretty good sign. It's time to leave.
Yeah.
By the way, like
that may be a blessing in disguise. Like they at least had the courtesy to throw the dead dog on her front door. That's not great, but that does give you a good indication. I should move.
It's too bad that wasn't John Wick's dog. Otherwise, he would have saved us a whole world war by taking out all of them. So, all right, he would have taken on the whole German army. My best supporting actor is going to go to Joel Grey, the Master of the Ceremonies. Like I told you at first hand, I was like, no, I don't like him. He makes me feel uncomfortable. But that's the point. There's more to him than that. He's a creepy little guy. Funny, but also creepy. Hidden gem. Mark.
We've talked a lot about it, but I kind of went with the musical numbers, how they're kind of vignettes to help separate it as a traditional musical. So this whole movie is an anti-musical in many ways. And so thinking about how it is juxtaposed against the Disneys and the family-friendly musicals, the Chitty Chitty Bang Bangs and whatever. So yeah, my hidden gem was just how they worked the music in and ultimately showed how flawed musicals are in general.
Chad, how about you? Hidden gem.
Ralph Wolter as Herr Ludwig, and we really get very, very few scenes of him. But I kind of like him. He serves as like the temperature check of German culture. And he just, by the end, he is fully bought in to fascism and he starts blaming the Jews for everything. But even before, it's like your uncle at Thanksgiving where they say something really uncomfortable and you're like, I'm going to let this go. Maybe this is just like one bad area. And nope, not so much.
I love that Thanksgiving has turned into a place of people saying
casual racism.
Yes. I know. I love that you said it like that. Yeah. All right. My hidden gem is, I mentioned it, they find these moments to put in the cut songs. When Sally seduces Bryan, they play It Couldn't Please Me More in the gramophone. When Max and Bryan and Sally are at lunch at the restaurant, an ensemble's in the back playing Sitting Pretty, which is also heard on the gramophone at Max's estate when they're dancing. When Bryan and Fritz walk into the parlor, other tenants discuss the Nazis in the background of music. There's a song called So What playing. I love that they at least, if they're going to cut it, I love that they still found a little tip of the hat in there. It's a moment for people who love the musical, and I think sometimes there's a lot of conflict. People who are show purists don't like the movie format. You got to be different when you make a movie, and you have to make a choice. As you mentioned with Chicago, the show's great, the movie's great. I think this movie is also great. I think that those little moments of tipping your hat to the theater are really fun little inside thing. I like that a lot. Recast. If you had to recast somebody and put somebody else in their place, Mark, who's it going to be?
So I recasted Joel Grey. I do like Joel Grey. I actually saw him as the wizard in original Broadway cast, so I'm like full on a Joel Grey fan. But I don't know, there was something about him here. I know this is kind of his quintessential role, but I really liked the idea. I was reading that they were thinking about having a woman play the role or a non-conforming gender actor. So I was thinking, like, if it were remade today, having a Janelle Monáe in there or some other kind of gender non-specific person. If I'm thinking about the past, Katharine Hepburn came to mind. Like, how wild would it be to have Katharine play the MC in this sort of gender weird role? I could see that working pretty well.
Yeah. Now, Chad, how about you?
I went after Joel Grey as well. He's really good at his job, but unfortunately, his job unsettles me a lot.
It is.
It reminds me a whole lot. So my wife has this whole thing. She's dying to see a Cirque du Soleil. A lot of the performers kind of dress like this and kind of act in those mannerisms. And I watch horror movies all day. That stuff scares me. I don't like that. I don't like cats. There's And so the frequent close-ups of his face, it just doesn't help. Mark's talking about, hey, let's get more queer identities in here. I went with Paul Lynde. Get Paul Lynde around this time to fill this role. He's someone I don't find creepy. He's odd. He's very, very quirky, but he's fun. This dude's just no nightmare.
I had a hard time casting this exactly, but I know I wanted to go after Marisa's character, Natalia Launder, the woman who is
She was nominated for Best Supporting Actress.
I know, but
I have no idea why.
I don't know why.
I don't know why. To be that's one I'm not sure I quite understand the nomination on that one. She's fine. I just wanted to get. I'm not sure I even have the right person, to be honest with you.
Why is the G there? No one knows.
That I liked. Our language is confusing. I want somebody who might be a little more young and maybe just somebody a little more warmth in there. I felt like there was this coldness in her that conflict that she has is actually a really big conflict when she's opening up. And when she's talking to Liza Minnelli, and she's like, she has that humorous line of like, "Do they have nuns for Jews?" Like, it's like can you like? I was like, I like that. I felt like that scene. I felt like that moment. It was like, I don't feel like you're adapting to the setting as you're spilling your heart out. Now you're being vulnerable. The wall is down. I don't know. I don't feel like Oscar nomination stuff to me. But what do I know? Best shot, Mark.
I like the last shot. This is at the point of the movie where the audience is forced to reckon with the fact that all these characters were making all these choices in a terrible time, and most of them not good choices. So I love the idea of this refracted glass that is on one end showing us a crowd of Nazis, but then also it's distorted. So you also are getting a little bit of your own reflection. So kind of looking inwards a bit. I thought it was a really creative way to end it. Although, again, I do wish that it had been more kind of hammer over the head with the Nazi of it all, but I do think that last shot was successful.
That is a great shot. There was a lot of good shots that would normally just be like, that's a good shot, or I like that, or like that fade where they go from being in the room to being in the woods caught me as being like, wow. But it all pales in comparison to what you just said. What a great way to end the movie from a cinematography standpoint. Loved it. Really good work. That's mine too. Chad, can you be different?
I can. I'm gonna pick the one with the gorilla, and it's just the slow reveal. Like they had the person in a full gorilla suit, but they're wearing a dress, and you don't really get the shot. And then it just turns around. It made me laugh. I'm like, oh, that's just really unexpected. I wasn't expecting a gorilla suit. I mean, Mark chose the best one. He chose the right answer. You guys both did, but I'm gonna choose someone in a monkey suit.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I feel like that speaks to my movie intelligence. Everyone else, the fish eyes and dirty refracted lens and the brokenness of the film. Like, yay, monkey suit.
Best scene, Mark.
So I actually went back and forth from this and being my best shot as well. So best scene is Tomorrow Belongs to Me. I love the way the camera pans down to reveal the swastika. You see the face up close first, and then the camera pulls out, and you actually realize what you're seeing. Just think it worked really well. So definitely my favorite scene, favorite song, maybe even the best shot, but I'll go with my first answer on that one.
And the way Bryan ends that scene when he turns to Max, you still think you can control them? Like that moment, it's
that was good.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, definitely a turning point. People are starting to catch on at that point.
Chad, how about you? Best scene.
That's mine as well, for all the reasons Mark just covered. It's a fantastic song. Out of context, in context, it sends chills down your spine. Just seeing people willingly join in and sing proudly. The situation is dire.
It is. There are moments of warmth in this that make this a tragedy. And without those moments of warmth, it doesn't hit the way it's supposed to. I really loved it when they were in bed and she said, I thought you said you hadn't have success being with women. He's like, I just haven't been with the right woman before. And they had the laughing that they both have after that. It's
it
really
was
nice
the wrong three women.
It's the wrong three women. Yes. Yeah. And so even better than that was she's having a baby. She fully is saying, I don't know whose it is. And he's saying, I don't care. I'm still here with you. And that's a beautiful kind of loyalty, and I just thought that was very touching. And honestly, if you transported that and that was the big climax of a regular like mushy romance movie or whatever, we've gone through all this, that would have been really pretty awesome. Obviously, this movie finishes out for important reasons that reflect what is happening in Germany. Obviously, this is what really happened in their real life as well. It is a tragedy, but you can't have those tragic moments if you don't make people feel something then to take it away. So that warm scene, it is very heartwarming. Best wardrobe and makeup moment. Lot to choose from here, Mark.
Yeah, I guess a twofer, but maybe just all one. I just loved all the wardrobe for the dancers, Kit Kat Club dancers, MC. I think the gorilla suit also stands out, obviously. Russell, you touched on the makeup being kind of unsettling, and I think that was a great choice throughout the whole film. So yeah, I just give it to the Kit Kat Club in general.
For a song where they're dancing around scantily clad singing two girls, one guy, I felt uncomfortable watching that. I was like, these girls are kind of creepy with their like weird looking makeup and stuff. Jet. And I'm the only man.
Who needs wardrobe?
Yeah. The strobe light made it all the more unsettling too. Their low tech strobe light. Chad, how about you? Best wardrobe or makeup moment? Is it the gorilla suit?
No. I went with some period pieces. I actually thought all the costumes were really well done, but the specific flapper outfit that Sally has on during Money Money, I like the functionality of the costumes being able to catch the coins. I thought that was a really fun touch between her and the MC. Yeah, that's my pick.
And I'm going to go with what is often put on the cover. It's not necessarily the original movie poster, but I mean, that queued up curl on the side of her head with the slick black hair, the bowler cap, the black vest, sleeveless, short shorts with garters. It's very striking, all black ensemble, and that Liza Minnelli has on, and it's iconic. So I'm going to be boring and pick that one.
No one chose her haircut.
No one chose Fritz's straw hat. I kept thinking, I was like, if you're courting a lady, you've got to get rid of that hat. There's something about that hat that just seems cheap to me. Like, you look like a gigolo with that cap. Come on. Step up your hat game. This is a classy lady.
He looks like Rob Schneider.
I was going to get a better hat. Sorry. Change one thing other than Fritz's hat, Mark.
I just wanted more Nazis throughout, which is not a sentence I
I actually agree. I know where your sentiment is. Like, it feels so wrong to say, but you're right. There's a rising terror that's just so subtle.
The first hour, I'm like, I know there are Nazis somewhere. Like, I remember that I played a Nazi in the show. Where are they? It was something.
You were looking for Nazis like I was looking for songs. Mark's like, the train station? Could there be a Nazi getting off the train? No? Gosh. No, I had to go watch a bunch of stuff to teach myself things, to give myself context. So you're right. I mean, it's not a layup that someone's going to just watch this and get it all. How about you, Chad?
Mark stole mine, but he said it in a much funnier way than I did. But I wanted a clearer focus on the dread that leads up to that terrifying beer garden scene. But so I'll go a different direction. And anytime this shows up in these types of movies, I want it changed. So Fritz is pouncing. They go into detail of talking about what that pounce is. And Natalia is saying, no, 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 and then enjoys it. Stop doing that. Please stop doing that.
You're still in the era of the power kiss of like, dude just grabs girl and she's like, no, and she kisses him like, okay, this is great. Like,
right?
That's still a movie trope at that point. We stopped doing that at some point.
Teaching people that like eventually the no's will turn into a yes and things will end happily.
Okay,
yeah, it's very male coded for sure.
So, might change one thing. I had a hard time between this one. I think I would like greater context to what is happening around them. Doesn't have to. I don't need to be hit over the head with it, but just a little bit of. I musingly said like I need a spinning globe at the front, Casablanca style, to give me the rundown. I need a little more context to future-proof this movie. Clearly, condescending to the audience doesn't get you Oscars and stuff like that, so they probably made the right choice, but it does require a little bit of help there. And the other thing that I thought was a little bit murky was I was not real clear what was going on between the three of them, between Maximilian and them.
Oh, you sweet summer child.
It just took me a while to catch on. I don't know.
Bryan's immediate look, I'm like, there's a thing.
Well, it took me a little bit of time to be like, oh,
bless your heart. Bless your heart, Russ.
Because when he passed out drunk or whatever at one point, I was like, he's going to be really upset. As if he hasn't been doing it the whole time too. So I don't know. I'm thinking like an 80s time lapse where they're hopping into bed with each other back and forth and going in a hallway with the other one not seeing each other, like, and running from bedroom to bedroom or whatever, or Alan Rickman style, my bedroom at 9:30, your bedroom at 10:30, like, and just going around. And I don't know what humorous thing you need to say. I needed more information with what was going on there, because with the bombshell that they kind of dropped later of like, screw Maximilian. It's like, I do. He's like, I do too. I'm like, I thought that might be the case.
Way to go, Sherlock. I was getting very, very concerned because you were always on the side of tell me more, don't put the subtleties out there. And I'm just thinking, I thought this was too subtle. And you weren't chiming in. I'm like, oh my goodness, did Russell and I finally diverge? You were Mr. Spell it out for me.
I am not an observant person. I miss
I can't believe
social
you missed
cues.
that. Like, I can get missing the Nazi cues a little bit, but missing that's wild.
Blues are really good color. It's like, well, thank you very much.
Oh man,
I'd never thought about it before. You're right.
You could walk into a gay bar and be like, everyone was really nice to me.
I was gonna say, I have some plans.
Oh, please do. That'd be fantastic.
Okay. Best quote, Mark.
Leave your troubles outside. Life is disappointing. Forget it. Good lyrics from the MC. Perfectly captures distraction and what it represents.
Mm-hmm.
And also kind of situates musical ideology, this idea that musicals are shiny and therefore distraction, not real world, putting against the darkness of Nazism. So I think that was my favorite quote.
Yeah, everything is beautiful. That is.
Yeah.
Even the orchestra is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That was my Inigo Montoya moment of, you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Chad, how about you? What's your best quote?
Have you ever slept with a dwarf? Once, but it wasn't a lasting relationship. I enjoy that because Bryan completely tanks the joke. It's supposed to be once. The relationship was short.
I missed
that. I had marks written down as well, but to be different, I'm going to also say a runner-up that I had was Maximilian von Huyn said, the Nazis are just a gang of stupid hooligans, but they do serve a purpose. Let them rid us of the communists. Later we'll be able to control them. But who exactly is we? Said Bryan. And Maximilian kind of like, Germany, of course. And I love the callback that you pointed out later. He's like, do you still think you can control them?
Yeah.
Those are haunting words.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've come full circle on a scale of 5 stars with half-star intervals. Mark, what are you giving 1972's Caberet?
I gave it 4 out of 5. Just a bit too vague messaging-wise for the first half. So, musical numbers were heavily coded, maybe not translate as well for newer audiences. So, I had to dock it a point, but 4 out of 5.
All right. Let's see. Chad, how about you? 5-star scale, half-star intervals. What's it going to be?
I am just completely befuddled by this movie. I don't particularly like Bryan or Sally, and those are the leads. And I'm with Mark all the way of it was too subtle. but I see it's a genuinely good movie, and it's one of those things where I see all these critics praising. I'm like, man, I feel bad being this much at odds. But I just didn't care for the characters that much. But at the same time, even though I don't even think I like this movie, I can 100% see me recommending it to other people. So for that reason, it's well done. There's really interesting discussion, which I is now Mark's thing. Like this is the thing when you come on here. I'm going 3.5 stars. I think it's been a fascinating discussion.
Well, you kept us in suspense after the beginning. I wasn't sure how you felt about it. So
I'm still not really. That rating could shift in an hour.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I'm probably were somewhere closer to where you were initially, but I am going to go with a 4.5. And this movie had that because it's written at those different levels. It's really interesting what's happening in Germany, how this character who is bisexual and that story told in this time and in this setting, it's pretty unique. It's messy and unconventional, and it's also really important at saying what's going on around them. And the cabaret as a mirror back onto the crowd, as you pointed out, Mark, it's just a very smart movie. It's really, really good, really well made. It shouldn't be no surprise for a movie that gets all these nominations and awards. I think it's holding up really well, given that we still talk about history repeating itself. The forms of media change, the forms of evil come to seduce us and to draw us in to with the sideshow. We have a lot to learn in today's times from Cabaret, and I kept sitting there thinking, it's like, wow, like that's like now, or like without getting too into it, I felt like that was a pretty powerful thing to be saying about a movie that was made in 1972 about a movie that was happened in the 1940s. So I'm going 4.5. Really liked it, and maybe a little more music, maybe a few more Nazis would have had us all going all up higher on our count.
So I'll say real briefly, I'm an avid listener to your retro movie end of year episode. So I'm going to be listening this year to see how these ratings have changed.
Yes, it's been a strong year. But
Yeah. What is strange is at the end of the year we're more free. I have definitely put 3 and 4 stars over 5-star movies, just
You can.
because. Yeah, it's like at the end of the year, these are the movies I want to rewatch more. Although I did rank The Pianist really, really highly last year, and that is not a sit down and rewatch movie.
That's the other side of the Berlin story for sure.
Yes.
Well, I look forward to hearing in 5 months what your rehashing of this is.
Absolutely.
All right, Chad, do you want to help me pick a movie for next time?
I absolutely do. So, psychological horror movies focus on creating fear and unease through mental, emotional, and psychological states rather than relying on graphic violence or gore. Maybe like a creepy MC and weird makeup. Next week, that's exactly what we're going to get into with one of these movies, and I'm super excited. So, option number 1, Russell, Event Horizon from 1997. A rescue crew is tasked with investigating the mysterious reappearance of a spaceship that had been lost for 7 years. Option 2, In the Mouth of Madness from 1994. An insurance investigator begins discovering that the impact a horror writer's books have on his fans is more than inspirational. Or option 3, Possession from 1981. A woman starts exhibiting increasingly disturbing behavior after asking her husband for a divorce. Suspicions of infidelity soon give way to something much more sinister. What's it going to be?
I don't know anything about that last one you read about, and somehow that description for Possession catches my ear. I want to know more about that.
It's so fantastic. I am looking forward to you seeing that one.
Okay, it sounds like I'm definitely locking that one in then. And thank you, Mark, so much. As always, you
Yes,
are
thank
always a
you.
great guest. You pick great movies for us to watch. You help
Challenging
teach us about
movies.
yeah, exactly. There's a reason we keep coming back to you. You're one of our favorite guests. So thank you so much, Mark.
Oh, well, it's so good to be here with you both. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And thank you, Lords, Ladies, and Lights of the Retro Movie Roundtable. We invite you to reach out to us, and so subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe on our YouTube channel. Give us a like on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at @movie_retro, and emails at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. And producing and providing this podcast is fun, but not free, so we invite you to support our show at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/retromovieroundtable. All contributions are much appreciated and will go towards making the show better for you, the listeners. As always, thank you for listening. Be good to each other and watch more movies. Chad?
It'll never work. Why not? Because I hate you. There's only one business where that's no problem at all.